Welcome to the first Jazz Advisory Committee podcast, featuring jazz bassists Buster Williams and Gene Perla.
Hey, Buster. How you doing?
Okay, Gene, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. So let's begin talking about a little brief history of each one of us, how we got to where we have gotten with our bass playing. We're both bass players.
Well, I started I started taking lessons from my father, I guess when I was 13 years old. And
he was a bass player.
My father was a bass player, yeah. And a very strict teacher, So with him, I knew pain immediately. and he would not let me escape from the pain. And you know what I'm talking about, those blisters.
Oh, I sure do, man. Those early days, man.
And you go to bed at night and your fingers are throbbing. Yeah. You got nowhere to put your hand. Yeah. But he said you just got to play through it, Yeah. I'm glad he was like he was, because the strictness made me really determine whether I was serious or not. And evidently I determined that I was serious, and the pain was worth it. The pain was worth the gain.
Yes.
So, so I began playing, around Camden and Philadelphia. And then I joined a trio, two guys from Wilmington. And that trio was hired by Dakota Staten. And we started touring with Dakota Staten. And she had this big hit, The Late Late Show.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So after about a couple of years, then I went with Betty Carter. And then I graduated from high school and went out with Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt.
Wow.
And my mother told me, she says, if I knew that, you wasn't going to come back home, I would have never let you go. Because this was in 1960 and I've been on the road ever since. You know how that is. So, and we played with many of the same people.
This is true.
I went from Dakota Staten to Betty Carter to Sarah Vaughan to Benny Golson, Lee Morgan and Cedar Walton and Kenny Barron, Herbie Hancock, Carmen McRae. We both played with Miles Davis. We both played with Elvin Jones. And what about you?
Well, I was a classical piano player, student from 5 years old to 15. And then I went to, got in high school, and I took up the trombone. And I was playing in the marching band and, the concert stuff. And it wasn't really like, it was fun to do. That was it, really. I didn't have any ideas about the future, doing something with music. So I went to engineering school in Ohio. And it just wasn't working out. I flunked out the first year. I then went into another business thing and I flunked out the second year. Then I got in a 2-year program that I was working on. And right about that time, I went to see a fraternity brother of mine who was playing in a local band where they played their own instruments and sang. And when I heard them, I said, man, I could do this stuff. So one thing led to another. I joined them. Then the drummer and I were really good friends, and we would go very often to the local record shop and listen to records. This was before they had no shrink wrap, so you could take the LP and put it in the listening booth, right? Mm-hmm. And I hear Miles Davis Kind of Blue, 1959, and I hear this piano player, Bill Evans, and a little bit later comes out this record, The Shape of Jazz. No, the Sunday at the Village Vanguard with Scott LaFaro, right? So I'm listening to Bill Evans and I'm hearing him play, and that was it for me. I said, now I have to find a school. So at that time, there were only 2 schools, jazz schools in the world. At least that's what I understand. One was North Texas State, and the other was Berkeley. And North Texas, they really focus on big bands, but
big bands, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to Berkeley, and I'm struggling with that piano, man. So I'm turning 24 years old, and a classmate of mine sees me on the street, and he says, I'm going to play this new record for you, man. So I went over there, and he puts on The Shape of Jazz to Come with Ornette, right? Charlie Hayden. No chords, and I hear that single note, and I said, oh, man, this is for me. So I went and bought a $600 K bass, and I started breaking my hands like you. So that's what happened.
My first bass was a K bass, too.
Yeah.
My father had 2 K basses.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was able to convince him, to teach me how to play the bass, because at first he refused, because I had first asked him to teach me how to play piano. And so I was studying piano, but I didn't stick with it. Then I asked him to teach me to play the drums. And so he went upstairs and he came downstairs with this little pad and 2 sticks.
Uh-oh.
This practice pad, with a rubber disc on it,
Hang on it so you don't make so much noise.
Right. And I said, no, Dad, I want to play the drums. What is this thing? And he took the 2 sticks and he said, boom, 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 boom. And he said, Mama, Daddy, Mama, Daddy. And I said, what is this? I want to kind of make some noise. But I stuck with the drums for a while, but not long enough. And then one day he played me a record by Oscar Pettiford. And Oscar Pettiford was playing a solo performance on Stardust. And I had never heard anything like this. And, Gene, the thing that really captured me was I could hear his thumb squeak. His thumb made a squeaking noise as he slid up and down the fingerboard.
Yeah.
And man, that captivated me. I felt like I was there. I felt like I could see what he was doing. And after listening to that, I told my father, I said, Dad, you got to teach me how to play the bass. And he immediately just said no and walked away. So I went to my mother that evening and asked her, why did Dad, refuse to teach me how to play the bass? And she said to me, she says, well, you didn't stick with the drums. You didn't stick with the piano. And the bass is your father's heart. She says, if he starts to teach you to play the bass and you don't stick with that, you'll break his heart.
Yeah. Wow.
And, foolish me, I didn't know, that was my way out. I said, no, Mom, I really want to play the bass, and, tell Dad I'll stick with it. I'll do whatever he says. So anyway, she spoke to my father. The next day, he comes to me, and, my father was very stern. And he looked at me straight in the eye and he says, okay, if you want to learn the bass, then you do everything I say. You do it when I say do it. And you do it with alacrity, and you better be serious about it. And, now I'm afraid to say, to bow out, because my father, he would easily say, I brought you in, I can take you out.
Boy, he was tough.
Oh, he was tough.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I really, really got started, with the bass. So he had these 2K basses, and his favorite bassist was Slam Stewart.
I took a lesson from Slam Stewart.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow.
What a sweet man. Sweet man.
So, Slam tuned his bass a C, G, D, and A.
Uh-huh.
He took up the E string off the bottom, put a C string on the top.
Yeah.
And so my father had his basses tuned that way.
Ah, he did. Oh.
So when he agreed to teach me, that's the other thing he says, now I'm going to change the tuning on my bass to the traditional G, D, A, E. He says, now don't have me do that. And then weasel out.
Yeah.
So he tuned the bass, changed the strings to G, D, A, and E. And I had that K. When I went out with Gene Amundsen, Sonny Stitt, and all of the stuff that I did before joining Sarah Vaughan, it was with that K.
Mm-hmm.
I love that K bass, man.
Yeah. So how old were you when you started the bass?
I was 13.
Ah, 13. Wow.
Yeah.
Young.
I graduated high school in 1960. And that's when I went out with Gene Amundsen, Sonny Stitt, and went on from there, But I had, and when I joined Gene Amundsen, Sonny Stitt, I was playing with Jimmy Heath. And this fantastic drummer had just come back on the scene. He had been away at what we call college. He was incarcerated.
Uh-huh.
His name was Specs Wright. You remember that name?
No.
Specs Wright was a fantastic drummer, man, and he was a good friend of Jimmy's. And he came out of prison and joined Jimmy's band. I was with Jimmy for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
We played around Philadelphia, and he was the most popular guy in Philly. Mm-hmm. So we were the top band in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had made it. I'm playing in Philly with Jimmy Heath and Specs Wright, and Sam Dockery was the piano player.
Right.
Remember, he was with one of the original, not the original, but one of the early Art Blakey jazz messengers.
Mm-hmm.
With Jackie McLean, Bill Hardman, and Spanky DeBrest. You remember that name, Spanky DeBrest?
I know that name.
From Philadelphia. And yeah, so some of the early stuff.
Wow, really great. Well, let's move on a little bit because we're both educators. And in fact, both of us are currently teaching at the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music in New York. So how did you wind up, getting into this?
Well, Reggie Workman was a good friend of mine, or is still a good friend of mine. And Reggie, I was part of the New School from its inception, when Arnie Lawrence, alto player, started the New School.
Yeah, well, Arnie actually got in touch with me when he started the school, and he said, "Why don't you come and teach at the school?" And I was so busy with my record label and stuff, I turned it down. But, yeah.
Were you producing records then?
Yeah. Well, 1960? No, not 1960.
No, this was after 1960 when the New School started. Do you remember what year?
No, I'd have to look it up.
But it started in the next decade. I think it was in the 70s.
Yeah, I started my label in 71. The first release was in 72.
Yeah. And so Reggie called me for the New School. And so I started with the New School early on. I sort of at the beginning and had been in existence for a while, but it was early on. And so I stayed with the New School for maybe 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left. And then I came back in 2018. So I've been with the New School now since 2018. And I also began teaching at the MSM also in 2018. So, so I'm teaching at both of these schools right now.
So I moved to central New Jersey, and I was married to a woman who trained and showed show horses. And we'd drive very often for her shows into Pennsylvania. And on Route 78, I would see on top of this hill, it looked like, the glass kind of things that they have at airports, the traffic control. It looked like something like that building. And I was always curious. So one day I went there and found out that they had a music program. And next thing I know, I got hired to teach audio in their recording studio. And I was there for a couple of years, and I saw that they didn't have anything at all about that. It was a good music program, but they had no classes in music business.
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave me some seed money, and I started a couple of courses there, and it wound up to be a music business minor degree. And in the meantime, I had become friendly with Jimmy Owens. And when it came time that Jimmy decided that he was going to stop teaching the music business, he recommended me to Martin Mueller, who was running the program at the time.
Right.
And so I got the gig, and I've been teaching there since 2008, music business, and that developed. I taught a few years the Sibelius program, and I've been doing ensembles, and they're just giving me now, this coming semester, a second ensemble, which is the Elvin Jones Ensemble. But it's gratifying to see those students who come into the classroom, and you just know that they, first of all, you can sense they've got the talent. They've got sufficient talent to get somewhere, but that they're really interested, And it can be frustrating sometimes when there are students who maybe they have talent, but they don't seem like they really gung ho about it, So that's trying to satisfy those students that are really going for it, and to try and bring the others along. It's a work.
Yeah, and the array of students, you got everything imaginable. Those who can and those who won't, and those who really want to, and those who are struggling, and those who, are obviously talented. And but one thing for me that becomes clear right away at the inception of the semester is that my job is cut out for me.
That's right.
And I have to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so rewarding to see the impact that you have on these students, and the potential that they begin to display right away. And week by week, you can see and hear their growth. And that serves as a true reward for me. And we have 14 weeks to make a difference each semester. And so I find that a real challenge, and a real sense of commitment that's necessary to make that difference.
That's right. Yeah, it's work, but gratifying work.
Gratifying, is definitely gratifying.
And it might be interesting for people to know that the New School in New York is a union shop, meaning that the part-time teachers are members of the American Federation of Musicians,
Local 802. Right.
In New York. And it's a wonderful thing to feel that support that comes from being associated with people who are trying to do the same thing, and that you can work together to make the program better. So.
Right. And Local 802 has really made a difference. The school didn't start out that way. Jimmy Owens, and I think yourself, were the instigators of bringing the union in.
No, I wasn't. I came after it was already established. Bob Cranshaw was involved.
Jimmy Owens was one of the initiators. Yeah,
definitely Jimmy.
And and when Bob Crenshaw was a member of Local 802, he made a big difference too.
Yeah.
But I've seen where the Local 802 being a part of the New School has made a vast difference. And I'm so glad that is the case. I would like to see the students at the New School, as well as the MSM and all of the schools in New York. I would like them to experience the value of being part of Local 802. And so I hope that, and in fact, I know that in the future we're going to be doing some instrumental things to introduce the students to Local 802, where they can get the value to see the value and experience the value of being members of Local 802.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this has been an interesting conversation for me to speak with you, Buster. And, maybe we can do something like this again in the future.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. And keep tuned for upcoming Jazz Advisory Committee podcasts in the future. Thank you so much.
All right.
See you, Buster.
Thank you, Gene.